I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man. Just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up his ass. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together.
Max B and Jim Jones were once closer than brothers, but the moment Jim tossed that bond like it meant nothing, that's when Max flipped the whole script. The same man who once cooked up hits for Dipset turned into Jim's worst nightmare overnight, and Harlem felt every shockwave. Word on the streets was wild. Max allegedly snatched Jim's girl, trashed his car, and turned Uptown into a full-blown war zone just to get even. This wasn't no rap beef. This was personal.
So Jim Jones, compare the names. Look, Max Bigavel, Jim Jones. That don't even add up. That's not on my level, man.
Let's run it back to where it all started. Charlie Wingate, better known as Max B, was Harlem to the core, born and bred in the Abraham Lincoln Projects, surrounded by struggle but never short on hustle. His childhood was rough. His mom battled addiction and spent time in and out of prison, leaving his grandmother to hold it down. She was his rock, but even she couldn't keep him fully away from those streets. Still, before Max ever touched a mic, he found his voice in the boys' choir of Harlem. Yeah, that Max B started out singing gospel melodies before he was chanting, "Wave."
My name is Max B, aka Max Bigavel. We know Bigavel stands for Big Jig and Pac, right? But where did the name...
Big Jig and Machiavelli, baby.
Yeah.
Big Jig and Machiavelli.
That's where that smooth melodic sound was born. The lazy flow, the sing-song bounce, that signature wavy vibe that would later make him a legend. But real life hit hard. By 18, Max was already deep in the mix and ended up getting locked up on robbery charges in 1997. He did 8 years behind bars, 8 long years that could have broken most men, but not him.
Boyfriend Charlie Wingate, aka Max B, a rapper, about the men's money. Then Wingate reaches out to this man, Calvin Leardom.
That time sharpened him, gave him edge, purpose, and that cold swagger that made his name ring out later. When he finally walked out in 2005, he wasn't just Charlie Wingate anymore, he was Max Bigavelli, a name inspired by Biggie and Machiavelli, symbolizing the best of both worlds, charisma and chaos. And trust, the world was about to find out what that combo really meant. Biggie, Pac, Machiavelli, Jigga. Max B swore he was the perfect mix of all four. He had Biggie's hypnotic flow, Pac's pain, and Jay-Z's hustler glow, all rolled into one Harlem soul. That's why he called himself Max Bigavelli, the living fusion of rap's greatest icons. The name said it all. Confidence, chaos, and charisma wrapped in one wild wave.
It all began the morning of September 22nd at the Fort Lee Holiday Inn. Police are called there after a man is shot to death. The victim, David Taylor from Florida, was staying in room 227.
When Max hit the streets fresh out of prison, Harlem was on fire. The diplomats had the city in a chokehold. Cameron and Jim Jones were untouchable, running every block from Lenox to Broadway. But fate was crazy. Max reconnected with Cam, and that link brought him face to face with Jim Jones. That's where it all started. The partnership that was supposed to make history, but ended up becoming one of Harlem's biggest heartbreaks. Jim signed Max to his Bird Gang label, and with Harlem legend Dame Grease cooking up beats, the magic was instant. In 2006, Max dropped his first mixtape, $1 Million Baby, and the streets couldn't get enough. That voice, smooth but savage, that swagger, effortless but dangerous. It was like Harlem had found a new sound, and Max was the wave behind it. Bird Gang was stacked with talent too, literally. Stack Bundles was another rising star, and together, he and Max gave Jim's music a whole new life. Songs like Baby Girl turned into street anthems, with Max's hooks carrying the whole vibe. Jim was sitting on gold and everyone knew it. Max was his secret weapon, the one who made every record hit harder, but the streets always got a way of pulling you back in. By September 2006, Max's world flipped.
Got him in his drive already. I don't owe nothing. He got all his songs already. How you think he got so hot? Came out with all them tapes. I did that. I put them hooks together. I made incredible music. All he did was rhyme 16s. Well, you know, I made the hooks. I made the melodies.
Yeah.
I made the shit, dog. I'm the man.
his ex, Gina Conway, started telling him about a flashy dude named Alan J. Plowden, a man dripping in money, cars, and scams. Word is, Max saw opportunity in that story. Gina claimed he told her straight up they could hit a lick and make it big. That's when the line between rap dreams and street schemes started to blur, and everything began to spiral. What happened next still sparks arguments to this day, but one thing's for sure: the ending was tragic and unforgettable. Max B wasn't even there when it all went down, but prosecutors painted him as the puppet master pulling every string. Gina Conway, the same ex who told him about that flashy dude, took the stand and flipped the whole story inside out. She was deep in the streets herself, juggling, dealing, and stripping, and she testified that Max sent her and his stepbrother, Kelvin Kells Sims, to rob Alan Plowden at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey.
Banged it just enough to get my room so I could ram his shit up, ram it up in. Right? My window was there. He tried to grab me. So when he came in the window, I punched him in the face.
The plan was supposed to be simple: break in while Plowden was out partying and grab the cash. But everything went wrong from the start. Gina and Sims reportedly drove around lost for hours, missing exits, arguing, wasting precious time. By the time they finally got there, Plowden was already back in the room, sleeping next to another woman. Then out of nowhere, another man named David Taylor walked in. He wasn't part of the plan at all, but panic took over. Sims freaked and pulled the trigger, shooting Taylor in the face, execution style. In one instant, a sloppy robbery turned into a cold-blooded murder. After that, everything unraveled fast. Gina Conway was the first to get caught, and once she did, she folded instantly. To save herself, she gave up a 169-page statement to investigators, spilling every detail and putting Max right at the center. She told them he promised her loyalty, money, and forever if she played along. But when the heat came, those promises vanished. When the feds finally came for Max, they didn't play around. He was arrested and slammed with major charges, including conspiracy and felony murder. His bail, a staggering $2 million. Locked in a cold cell, Max watched his world freeze while the rest of Harlem kept spinning. And guess who started shining right after that? Jim Jones, the same man who Max had been writing hits for. Suddenly, Jim's face was everywhere. His single We Fly High, Ballin', took over the radio, the clubs, and the charts. It was his biggest hit ever.
Right around that time, Max B gets found guilty on 9 of 11 counts, including felony murder. And he gets sentenced to, was it 75 years?
Yeah, 75.
But behind bars, Max was claiming something wild. He said he wrote that record along with a bunch of Jim's other bangers. He swore the biggest song of Jim's career was his creation, and that revelation sent shockwaves through Harlem. While Jim was out there flashing checks, doing interviews, and living the high life, Max B was sitting behind bars, fighting for his freedom, his name, and his sanity. 10 long months went by before his bail finally dropped to $90,000. That should have been the light at the end of the tunnel, but that's when things got grimy. Instead of stepping up like a real brother, Jim allegedly played it cold. Reports say he agreed to help bail Max out only if Max signed over his publishing and locked in for 6 full albums under Jim's control. Imagine that, your so-called day one turning your desperation into a business move. With nowhere else to turn, Max signed the papers. Just like that, Jim owned the rights to the entire wavy sound, the same sound that was about to reshape Harlem hip-hop forever. Max walked out of jail in July 2007, but he wasn't the same man anymore. He came out colder, sharper, and full of resentment. He was broke, betrayed, and trapped in a deal that gave his creativity and his future to somebody he once called family. Jim Jones, the man who used to ride with him, was now eating off his pain. And while Max sat in that cell, watching his waves spread across the streets, Jim's name was growing, his fame exploding off the very melodies Max had created. Mixtapes, DVDs, and street blogs couldn't stop talking about Max B. Wavy had become a whole movement. His slang, his sound, his vibe, echoing through Harlem like a legend in real time. But the more the people chanted his name, the more Max's anger boiled. He realized if Jim wasn't gonna help him rise, then he'd take back his crown the loud way. By then, it wasn't just about business anymore, it was personal. Jim owned everything Max had written, every hook, every melody, every ad-lib that made Bird Gang pop. Max felt robbed, cut off, and humiliated. The friendship? Dead. The loyalty? Gone. All that was left was a man ready for revenge, and he was about to make the whole city feel it.
Originally, you were sentenced to 75 years. But then last July, you said you got reduced to 20 years and then to 12 years.
With his heart iced over by betrayal, Max B walked away from Bird Gang on a mission. If Jim Jones wasn't going to give him what he earned, Max was going to take his respect the loud way by tearing him down in front of the whole world. Nothing was off limits, and Harlem was about to witness one of the pettiest, most explosive fallouts in rap history. That's when Max found the perfect partner in chaos, French Montana. Back then, French wasn't the superstar he is today. He was still that raw Bronx street reporter, known for his Cocaine City DVD series that captured the real hood energy no label could fake. And guess what? French already had beef with Jim too. Rumors were flying that Jim had been spreading dirt on French after a shooting incident. So when Max and French linked up, it wasn't just business, it was a brotherhood built on mutual revenge. Together they created Coke Wave, a movement that shook the streets to their core. It wasn't just a crew, it was a statement, a mix of Harlem Flash and Bronx grit, and it became one of the most savage, unforgettable mixtape runs the underground ever saw. Max already knew the industry wasn't going to come save him. He didn't own his publishing, didn't have label support, and wasn't seeing a dime off the sound he built. But what he did have was his gift, the voice, the melodies, the slang, and the streets that still loved him. So he flipped the game on its head and started dropping music for free. He fed the people straight from the source, showing them the raw, unfiltered wave that labels tried to bury. But Max wasn't just making music, he was launching lyrical grenades. Every drop came with shots fired at Jim Jones and his whole circle. The first big one, a mixtape called Public Domain 3. And that's when Max officially went from artist to outlaw, using the mic as his weapon. The Public Domain 3 cover alone said everything. Max B posed right in a graveyard, surrounded by tombstones with names like Millie, Jim Jones, and Vanilli Joel Santana carved into them. Straight disrespect. He was calling them out, comparing Jim and Jules to Milli Vanilli, the fake pop duo who got caught lip-syncing their fame. In Max's eyes, Jim and Jules were doing the same thing, riding the wave he created, pretending it was theirs. Max mocked them mercilessly in his songs, throwing lines like, "I know them dudes need me, I was giving them the loots, but them dudes done blew it." Every bar hit like a dagger, sharp, funny, and personal. But Max didn't stop with music. He went nuclear on their reputations too. Nothing was off limits. He started exposing personal lives, dirty laundry, and any crack in Jim's image he could find. Then came the track that took the beef to a whole new level of disrespect. She Touched It in Miami. Max claimed that Jim's longtime girlfriend, Chrissy Lampkin, had been with him in ways that crossed every line imaginable. On the track, he painted a wild scene, laughing through the bars, clowning Jim like his own inner circle was in on the joke. Whether people believed it or not didn't even matter. The streets couldn't stop talking about it. The disrespect was so bold, so raw, that it practically went viral in the mixtape era. Jim Jones was stunned. He didn't see it coming at all. The man who used to be his right hand was now his loudest enemy, dragging him in public like it was sport. Jim tried to clap back, saying Max was just a bitter has-been who never made it off the shelf. He denied the rumors, denied the stories, and most of all, denied that Max ever wrote "We Fly High." But the streets, they weren't buying it. Everybody had heard the old reference tracks, and Max's voice was all over them. You could hear the flow, the cadence, the tone. It was undeniable. The same ballin' anthem that made Jim a star had Max's fingerprints all through it. That's when the streets officially picked sides, and Harlem started to whisper. Jim might have been the face, but Max was the wave. The streets started whispering, was Jim Jones really the mastermind behind Dipset's success? Or was Max B the one who built that wave all along? The doubt spread fast, and Max moved like he had a personal score to settle. This wasn't just rap beef anymore. This was war. Max even claimed Jim tried to ambush him one day, blocking his car in a parking lot with his Bentley like it was a setup. But Max said he saw it coming. He slammed the gas, rammed straight into Jim's car, and threw hands before speeding off into the night. It sounded insane, but Max wasn't hiding it. He proudly showed off the dents in his car like they were war medals. French Montana and a few others backed his story too, and just like that, the legend of Max B grew even louder. Then came November 2008, the night things got real. Max and French rolled deep into Manhattan and decided to confront Jim Jones face to face. They stormed into the very building where Jim was recording, ready to make a statement. According to Max, the second Jim realized who had just walked in, he panicked and called the cops. That rumor alone sent shockwaves through Harlem. To Max's fans, that was the ultimate insult. Street dudes calling police, it only made the beef more brutal. And it didn't stop there. Not long after, their crews ran into each other at a Brooklyn club, and all hell broke loose. Chairs were flying, bottles smashing, people yelling. Then came the sirens and even K9 units rushing in. It felt like a full-blown movie scene, but this was real life. That's how deep the tension ran. Nobody was safe, not even in the city that raised them both. By the time the chaos cooled down, Max B had done way more than just diss Jim Jones. He'd humiliated him in the eyes of the streets. Max had become a full-on cult hero, a street legend who didn't need a label, a cosign, or a deal. He was locked into contracts that gave him nothing, yet somehow he gave the culture everything. His sound flooded every block, his voice echoed through every mixtape, and his name, immortal. But just as Max's street legacy hit its peak, another storm was brewing, and this one wasn't about music. He was about to face the biggest, most life-changing battle of his career, one that would decide everything. Max B was walking straight into the fight of his life, a criminal trial that could bury his whole wave in concrete forever. June 9th, 2009, the Bergen County Courthouse was packed, and Max stepped in like a man who still believed in his story. Cameras flashing, fans outside chanting, and that trademark confident sway in his step. He looked like he was ready to win, not fold. His legal team came in bold too, talking heavy before the verdict even dropped. They swore they'd torn apart the prosecution's key witness, Gina Conway, the woman whose testimony had become the heart of the whole case. Gina was no stranger to the streets, but once she got caught up, she flipped quick, cutting a deal and testifying against both Max and his stepbrother, Kelvin Kells Leardam, in exchange for less time. Max's lawyer didn't hold back either. He painted Gina as a scorned woman, angry, vengeful, and willing to say anything to save herself. He said she was twisting stories, turning loyalty into lies, and doing whatever it took to protect her own skin. But courtrooms don't care about street codes or rap loyalty. Swagger can't save you when the system's got its eyes locked on you. When the jury came back, Max's whole world flipped in seconds. Guilty on 9 out of 11 counts: armed robbery, conspiracy, aggravated assault, felony murder. Each word hit harder than the last. The same courtroom that once buzzed with confidence fell dead silent as Max realized his fate was sealed. The prosecution's story was simple but powerful. They said Max was the puppet master, the man who planned it all, sent others to do his dirty work, and sat back waiting to cash in. Even if he wasn't there when the gun went off, they said his fingerprints were all over the plan. And with Gina Conway's detailed testimony, the jury bought it. Her deal with the government changed everything. Her original murder charges dropped down to armed robbery and manslaughter, earning her a recommended 18-year sentence instead of life. The defense fought tooth and nail, claiming she exaggerated or flat out lied to shave time off her sentence. But the damage was done. Max B, the wave god, had gone from Harlem's most promising voice to facing decades behind bars, all because of one plan, one betrayal, and one witness who decided her freedom mattered more than his. Ironically, during the trial, even Gina Conway herself testified that Max didn't actually know about the robbery. She admitted she used Max's name to convince her boyfriend, Kelvin Leardam, to go through with the plan, basically saying she dragged Max's name into something he never greenlit. The defense jumped all over that, arguing that Gina only turned on Max later out of heartbreak and desperation, twisting the truth to cut her own time. But the jury wasn't having it. They saw Max as the ringleader, the one pulling strings from the shadows, and that sealed his fate. On September 3rd, 2009, Max B was sentenced to 75 years in prison, with parole eligibility pushed all the way to 2042. In one moment, the wave god went from street legend to inmate number, watching his dreams get buried under decades of concrete and cold walls. The streets went quiet. Fans were heartbroken. But not everybody was mourning. Because while Max sat behind bars, Jim Jones seemed to be celebrating in silence. From a business angle, Jones had just played what looked like the ultimate checkmate. Max was locked up, Unable to record, unable to speak, and Jim still owned the rights to every hook, every melody, every chorus Max had ever laid down. Every cent those records made flowed right into Jim's pocket, even while the man behind them sat in a cell. Jim didn't keep his distance either. He mocked Max publicly whenever he could. He laughed in interviews, calling Max goofy names, brushing off his legacy like it never mattered. Jones painted Max as some washed-up rapper who never made it off the shelf, just another forgotten name in Harlem's rap history. He acted like the chapter was closed, like the wave had crashed for good. But what Jim didn't realize was the wave never dies. Even from behind bars, Max B was still moving energy through the streets. Fans wouldn't let his name fade, and Max wasn't about to go silent either. He stayed locked in, writing letters, staying in touch with French Montana, DJs, and small indie labels, keeping that wavy flame alive any way he could. Then came May 2010, and the whole power dynamic flipped. Out of nowhere, a judge ruled that Jim Jones no longer had any legal control over Max B's music career. Just like that, the publishing that had tied Max's creativity to Jim's pockets was gone, and the wave started rising all over again. The judge's ruling hit like a thunderclap across Harlem. It turned out Max B had already fulfilled both contracts he'd signed with Jim Jones back in 2005 and 2007. In simple terms, Max was free from the paper chains that had tied his music, his creativity, and his money to another man's pockets. Sure, he was still locked up physically, but legally, his art was his again. The empire that Jim thought he owned had just crumbled in court, and the streets went wild. With that weight off his shoulders, Max was finally able to drop his long-awaited album, Vigilante Season, in 2011. And when it hit, the world realized just how far his influence stretched. That wavy flow, the melodic street poetry mixed with raw pain, became the blueprint for a whole new generation of rappers. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Max's fingerprints in the sound, his cadence, his harmonies, the slang about waves, vibes, and freedom. It was all his DNA. Even behind bars, Max had become the voice of a new wave. His music inspired artists coast to coast, and fans started calling him the Harlem Prophet, the man who predicted the sound of the future while sitting in a cell. But just when people thought his story was locked in stone, something unbelievable happened in 2016. After 7 long years inside, Max's new legal team pulled a move straight out of a courtroom thriller. They filed a motion arguing that Max's original lawyer had completely failed him. They claimed that instead of fighting for his freedom, the lawyer was chasing a payday, trying to ride Max's rising rap career to riches if he beat the case. That argument hit hard, and the judge couldn't ignore it. Through a legal motion called post-conviction relief, Max's team managed to flip the entire case upside down. The court vacated his original 75-year sentence, wiping it clean. Max then took a plea deal for aggravated manslaughter, which cut 55 years off his time, slashing his sentence down to 20, then eventually to 12 years. And since Max had already served several of those years, his release date suddenly came into view. The same man who was once written off as finished now had a second shot waiting right around the corner. And the wave was starting to build again, stronger than ever.